On the Newsmaker line, we have Marita Noon. Energy Makes America Great.
Org.
She just loves doing that. She loves doing that. I'm telling you.
That's why you mess it up on purpose, just so I can have that weekly.
Well, I'm here for you, Marita.
Sometimes the girl's got to get it where she can.
Well, and the other thing, Marita, is you'd be amazed at how easily Michael messes things up just to help people.
I help people every day. Now, you're helping people understand public policy and regulatory decisions are driving up the electric rates. It isn't the price of fuel. So you're talking about when the cost of fuels go up, 1.7%, and the rates go up 5.3%. That tells you that it's probably something to do with what the government is doing, huh?
Yeah, it was very startling. The study that I based this week's column on was startling to me to realize how. I do this stuff. I focus on this stuff every day, so I should know this. But to really see it kind of spelled out and realize that government policy really alone is driving the rising energy costs. And one of the comments on the column on townhall.com that was there, someone commented about that their energy bill used to be like $50 a month. We're talking like a year or two ago, according to his comment. And now it's into the hundreds. So it's the bill has gone up, 5 times. And when you realize that it doesn't have to be that way, this is not market forces driving it, something's got to be done. The public's got to revolt. That's actually what the study that I kind of based my comments on was about. The study was written for companies such as XL and TNM, and to help them realize that their customers are going to be coming at them and going to be angry because the customers assume that it's the companies that are gouging them. When in reality, it's regulation.
And we can go back to the problems that are caused by these things. Look at our last February. We lost power in New Mexico. And if you actually look at, what actually happened, these utilities were given commands, especially the people shipping natural gas, to use a different power source for shipping the natural gas. So instead of them handling the shipping with their own natural gas, which would keep everything going, they went to electric because they were ordered to do so. The electric failed on them, and then they couldn't ship natural gas because it all stopped. And then everybody was mad at the natural gas producers because they weren't shipping natural gas. But if you go far enough upstream, you find there was a bureaucrat somewhere with a sharpened pencil. It tells you
that this entire problem is so much more complex than the average person understands. And that's in part why I wrote my new book, Energy Freedom, is because for most people, it's just a matter of we flip the switch on the wall, we put gas in our car, and we don't think about how the energy gets to the gas pump or gets to the switch in our wall. We don't understand what goes on, and if we understood that more, we would not be so easily duped by some of the plans that the government has put forth that they think are going to rearrange things, or we would push our elected officials. Like right now in New Mexico, we've got, yesterday came out an article in the Santa Fe New Mexican, and it may have been in other papers as well, talking about that TNM is not going to be able to meet the Renewable Portfolio Standard mandates, and that the mandates, the Renewable Portfolio Standard mandates, part of that is defined in there as at reasonable cost. And, you're not going to be able to meet those. So, all of us right now, everybody listening, we need to be contacting our elected officials in the state and say, repeal the blasted Renewable Portfolio Standard, because this is the type of legislation and regulation, and of course the EPA regulations. These are the things that are driving up the prices that we consumers are paying.
Would you add to that the requirement to put ethanol in New Mexico gasoline 10%?
Honestly, I don't know what that's doing to the price. I can't say that what that's doing to the price, but certainly the whole idea of ethanol is something that we've been subsidizing in this country for 30 years. And if it can't stand on its own as an industry at this point, we need to stop subsidizing it. And frankly, if we stop subsidizing energy, there's only a couple things that would survive, and ethanol, and wind and solar are not the ones that would survive.
Yeah. So, Marita, one of the things that we pay attention to the streams of news related to energy, because we understand energy is basically just like food to the body. It's the fuel that runs our economy. We've got a number of utilities now warning of blackouts because of these mandates that are basically going to force these plants into very, very costly retrofit jobs. And I think that listeners need to understand that we are talking about a handful of particles per billion in terms of what is being released at places like the Four Corners Power Region. These utilities have already spent hundreds of millions of dollars on pollution control equipment. Everything that's being released, it's literally almost unmeasurable, the amount of pollutants that are still left in these discharges. And yet,
not only is it almost unmeasurable, but a few years ago it wouldn't have been measurable.
Right.
It's only measurable. A few years ago we would have, we're in great shape. But because we can now, we've got new equipment, testing equipment, and we can dial it down to a tighter degree, now suddenly we're going, oh my gosh.
But you can't see anything coming out of these plants, and it's almost like a myth that somehow that there's a problem. The thing is that, Marina, I want to ask you this question is okay, so we've got these discharges down to literally a handful of particles per billion, and the radical environmentalists want to take another couple of particles per billion off the discharges, and it's going to cost the ratepayers hundreds of millions of dollars. The alternative for these utilities, since they aren't going to get reimbursed for a lot of these costs, is to shut down these plants. How many, if we get blackouts like we had last February, the question is, particles per billion, how many people die from 2 or 3 particles per billion versus how many people are going to die when we have blackouts and you can't get you can't get heat into homes when you get down to sub-zero temperatures in some areas. It's a joke, isn't it?
It is a joke. I was going to say before you said it's a joke, I was going to say I assume that's a rhetorical question, right?
I mean, but what this stuff is going on by elected officials. We're surrounded by elected officials who are allowing this to happen in the state of New Mexico, aren't we?
So we are. It's both federal and statewide, because the statewide elected officials are who control the Renewable Portfolio Standard, but it's the federal officials who deal with the EPA. Now, admittedly, the EPA, I believe, has overstepped their bounds. They are outside of the realm of the authority that's given to them, and the Congress is, in fact, the House of Representatives, our congressmen, have repeatedly put forth bills to tell the EPA, you cannot do this, basically. And the Senate, of course, won't let those go anywhere. And so we have a battle going on for control in Washington.
Let me ask you this question. Ben Ray Lujan, Martin Heinrich, Jeff Bingaman, and Tom Udall, are they supporting the repeal of these foolish policies, or are they pushing these foolish policies?
Well, basically, they're pushing them, particularly Jeff Bingaman. Jeff Bingaman has been on a crusade for years to try to pass a national renewable portfolio standard. And really, when you get right down to it, it is this renewable portfolio standard that is causing a lot of this price increase, because it is driving a certain percentage of renewable energy, which, as I point out in my article this week, it's clearly more expensive, regardless of what the other side will say. Oh, well, it could be more cost of, it could be have cost parity. Well, yeah, it could someday, if we keep using artificial source reasons to raise energy prices on traditional fuels. Someday, wind and solar, or renewables overall, because we can throw fuel cells in there and we can throw a few other renewable types in there, biomass and so forth. Yeah, it could someday be cheaper or at least have cost parity, but only when we artificially raise the price of the existing fuel sources. And that's what we're facing, as an artificial price increase for nothing.
We're talking with Marita Noon, EnergyMakesAmericaGreat.org. Marita, when we come back, need to talk about the effect of federal law that doesn't allow you to ship coal slurry in a pipeline over a railroad. And that's
how about Sand Dune Lizard?
There you go. Those rules like that, so that you can't, because the cheapest thing we got's coal slurry, and we can't move it because the railroads have a monopoly that you cannot eminent domain over their railroads.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
That kind of describes Marita Noon. She is here to help with the energy issues. Marita, I was talking a little bit about coal slurry and the fact that it is stopped by a monopoly that Congress allows, so that you really can't put in those kinds of pipelines, because you can't go over a railroad. There's no eminent domain for coal slurry. Have you looked into that at all?
I have not, but I think that's a wonderful topic.
All right, I'm writing about it this week, and I just was gonna get your look at that, because that's my.
Well, if you're writing about it, then I won't need to.
Oh, okay, yeah, it'll be there soon.
So, Marita, you mentioned the Sand Dune Lizard, and I noticed, and we have it's the newest post on newsnm.com, that Congressman Steve Pierce has gone to Department of Interior Secretary Ken Salazar.
Exactly, yeah.
With the dune sagebrush lizard issue. You think he'll get anywhere?
Well, I hope we will. We've seen some interesting things come out of D.C. recently due to public pressure. And that's one thing, I kind of harp on a lot, is that we as the citizens need to be involved. And back in September, when President Obama dialed back on the ozone regulations, it was due to public pressure. He didn't come up with that idea on his own. Last week or a week and a half ago, whenever it was, that President Obama made the decision regarding the Keystone XL pipeline, it was due to public pressure. Now, it was pressure not from the side of the issue that I happen to be on, but nonetheless, public pressure pushed that issue. And there has been a lot of attention drawn to this Sand Dune Lizard issue. And if there's 17 congressmen that have signed this letter to Ken Salazar, and also Udall and Bingaman have both joined on this to say don't list this Sand Dune Lizard. So, if I would encourage all our listeners to go to your website, look at that press release, and contact Ken Salazar directly and say, again, he's got the authority to tell the Fish and Wildlife Service to hold off on this decision. And the decision is supposed to come down in the next couple weeks, and that's why this is an important matter right at this point. We've been talking about the Sand Dune Lizard for a year, but the decision on the Sand Dune Lizard is supposed to come down. I think it's December 19th, I believe, is the date that they're supposed to make the decision.
I thought it was Saturday afternoon about 3:30 on Christmas Eve.
I think it's in the teens. I don't recall exactly, but they do like to do these things while everybody's out Christmas shopping and not paying any attention. That's for sure.
Well, that's a major step forward for Senators Bingaman and Udall, because they've been doing everything they can to make energy more expensive since they've been in office.
They have. So again, that has got to be representative of public pressure, because if they've joined on with this, that this was not their idea.
No.
So it's really important that we keep up the public pressure, and I'm, again, always encouraging people to realize that it does make a difference. It feels like when you place these calls and you get some kid that answers the phone at the congressman's office and they say, okay, I'll tell the congressman, you feel like you're wasting your time. But no, those calls get recorded, and the same thing for the White House and the same thing for Ken Salazar. You don't have to be an expert on the issue. No one on the other end of the phone is going to debate you. Your opinion is just going to be recorded, and those calls have got to be made. We've got to get the phone lines ringing.
Marita Noon, EnergyMakesAmericaGreat.org. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.